What's up, guys? I couldn't miss out on the opportunity personally to post this deck profile on the last day of Halloween. I'm also recording it on last day of Halloween, but the last day of October, which is evidently Halloween. So I am indeed posting my BAROMAGNES deck profile. This deck, in my opinion, has changed so much with just the addition of one card, and in my opinion, of course, it's just my opinion, but like the skill cap of this deck just went up so astronomically high because your deck velocity is so fast. It almost feels like if you don't play perfectly, you're not only racing against your opponent, but if you're playing sloppily or if you make like one mistake, and I kid you not, one mistake, like, you know, your deck is gonna pay. Your deck is gonna make you eat that taxes for making that one mistake, and it will evidently cost you the game. Like, if you don't take a damage when you were supposed to take a damage, or you take a damage when you weren't supposed to take a damage, you don't countercharge when you were supposed to countercharge, you don't put cards back in your deck when you're supposed to put cards back in your deck, you will lose. You don't go for the defensive play when you were supposed to go for the defensive play. You greedily added a Persona Ride when you don't need a Persona Ride. Like, I'm like wholeheartedly serious when I say that the skill cap of this deck has gone up very highly because of its deck velocity. But let's get into the profile. First thing we're going over the profile is the ride line. For the ride line, I am running Flaming Pony because Flaming Pony with one Amadadine becomes a Soul Charge 3. Obviously with 2 it becomes a Soul Charge 4, but I haven't, in my playtesting, I haven't done the CB2 for having 2 Amadadines on the field for that super velocity. More often than not, I haven't needed it. There actually hasn't been one practice game, and I've been battling out quite a few for, like, I've been grinding games for like the past 6 or 8 hours. There's been one game where I haven't gotten the 15 soul on turn 3. So what this card basically tells you is that just having this card, opening up with this card, you're gonna some way somehow get to the 15 soul on turn 3. Now, of course, this is like a 3 to 4 card combo, including herself. Of course, it's a 3 to 4 card combo. But you're going to have such a powerful push turn on turn 3. And you're also going to have the ability to sculpt your hand defensively to prepare yourself for your opponent's crackback turn. It's very, not, I wouldn't call it glass cannon because it does have defensive plays and it does have defensive options. I would say more of like a high risk, high reward, or I don't know exactly how to explain it. Like, if you play RPGs, it's like a very powerful sword, but every time you use it, you take damage. That's the best way that I could explain it. I'm gonna go over the soul charge cards first and go over the 3 to 4 card combos or the 5 card combos to get the 15 soul on turn 3. So I'm playing 4 copies of Brain Swirler. Y'all know that I took this card out of my deck, but as soon as Amadadine came in, he had to come in too. This with Amadadine is just so insane. It is so insane because Swirler gets just power for every time you soul charge. Amadadine increasing the soul charges. Consistently, my lane on turn 3, my lanes of Brainwash Swirler become 76 to 81. If it's like an 18k column, it becomes 78 to 83. Those are my columns on turn 1. You don't really use this outside of your turn, not turn 1, turn 3. You don't really use this card outside of your turn 3, what I found in all my playtesting, which has only been like 8 to 6 hours. So like, take this with a grain of salt, but I feel like this is the best version of the deck that I could come up with for set 6. I'm more so, like I said, playtesting, like, how do I maneuver this deck? Because if I do make one mistake, even in a matchup that I am advantageous in, I will lose. So I'm practicing the plays. The deck, I feel like, more or less, I've got this deck on lock, on where it needs to be and on where it wants to be. But let's go over the other Soul Charge cards. We're playing 4 copies of Selfish Engraver. She's crucial in this deck. She's the one soul you more often than not. She is the one soul you need on your turn 3. She's the counter charger you need. You know, that's why it is very crucial to run her at 4. I more often than not find myself just playing her to make sure that I do have the counterblast and my opponent doesn't try to counterblast deny me, which is a very valuable strategy against this deck. Like, this deck is, in my opinion at least, it is not unfair by any means. Like, it hits hard, but and it does create like 5 attacks, but it's not fair by any means because it really doesn't build that much of a hand, and there's like various amounts of counterplay to whereas you could like vary, like I said, if they make at least one mistake, you can win by deck out. If they make at least one mistake, you could just kill them. But these are my soul charge cards that I am running in the deck. 4 copies of Curtis, and then 4 copies of Selfish Engraver. Curtis is very crucial on your turn 3. Now, going over to it becomes a Soul Charge 3 instead of a Soul Charge 2. Going over your Amadadine combos on your turn 3. If you have one Amadadine, let's see here. I need, because with the pony I have 7 soul. So it's 1 Amadadine, 1 Brainwash Swirler, 2 Curtis, that's 15 soul. Yeah, because 7 plus 2 is 9, then plus 6 is... Yeah, so 1 Amadadine, 1 Brainwash Swirler, and 2 Curtis is 15 soul, and you have 1 lane that's 81k, that's your Brainwash Swirler line, and then you have another lane with your Amadadine and your Curtis, that is 31k, on your first turn 3. So it's very good, very pressuring. And then, let's say you don't have 2 Curtis. Like, if you have 2 Brainwash Swirlers and 1 Amadadine, that is, let's see here, 2 Brainwash Swirlers, 1 Amadadine, 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 2 is 11. You would need 1 Curtis and then 1 Selfish Engraver. Or another way to soul charge at least 1 card. And that is also your 15 soul. Another, I guess, combo would probably be... those are the main ones that I usually always have. There was a turn where I had like 3 Curtis and no Brainwash Swirlers. And what was that? That got me 9 soul. Yeah, that was enough. That was enough. But more often than not, you're not really relying on your Selfish Engraver like I used to in the past to get that 15 soul. I'm more often than not just using her for the counter charge, so I have enough counterblast to like complete all my plays. Another card that I do want to go over in this deck that people have cut down to 3, but which I did initially. I did cut this card down to 3, and then I cut Brainwash Sword to 3 because I was playing additional ponies in the main deck. But I found that when I would draw the ponies and I already completed my ride line, they were dead cards. So I just didn't want to play dead cards in my main deck per se, even though technically Brainwash Swirler is a dead card after turn 3 in most scenarios. But another card that I was playing was 4 copies of Caligula, or like I like to call him, is Twin Sword. Twin Sword actually becomes a combo piece with Amadadine, believe it or not, because for his secondary ability, when he soul charges 1 to replace the card you took out of soul, it becomes a soul charge 2. So this card can actually turn into a combo piece on your turn 3 to help you get into your 15 soul, which I actually have used it to do. And I was playing it at 3, but it is, in this version of deck, it's very crucial to run this card at 4 copies. You need to see at least one of this card in your soul to help you sculpt your hand to survive your opponent's first turn 3, your opponent's turn 4, so that you can kill them on the crackback. And then moving on to the rest of the deck, I am playing 3 copies of Persona Ride. I'm maxing out on Persona Ride because Persona Ride plus what you naturally do on turn 3. Turn 3 is, I've never killed on turn 3. Turn 3 is more often than not my push turn, where I do push my opponent to 3 to 4 damage. And then if you Persona Ride on turn 4, that just becomes a really good kill turn, or you just obliterate your opponent's hand. So that's the reason why I am maxing on a Persona Ride. More often than not, if you draw this in the early game, you cannot be greedy and keep it. You have to pitch it. Like, The only way you grab Persona Ride is if you draw it naturally on your like turn 3 or turn like for turn 4, or if you grab it off of your twin sword Caligula. But I really only grab it if I know I'm in like a really good position that my opponent cannot just magically grab something out of their ass and like kill me that turn, or put me in a really bad position to where Persona Ride is damn near useless now. But that's why we're maxing out at 3 copies. And then for the rest of the units I play 3 copies of Keenly Lewdly. Now I know most people play this at a minimum of 2 to 1 copies. The reason why Keenly Lewdly is so crucial in this version of the deck is because, like I said, this deck is all about deck velocity. And you play based off your deck velocity, based off your damage count, based off of your face up and face down damage, based off your hand. There's a lot of factors that you have to keep into account while playing this deck to make sure you don't lose, but it has like a very powerful board wipe, a very powerful multi-attack, a draw, 10k and a crit. So like it has very good benefits, but there's just a lot you have to keep in mind so that you may reap those benefits. So 3 Keenly Lewdly, because I found myself more often than not drawing into her in the early. I could not afford to keep her. I would have to discard her. I would have to, I would have to discard her, or or I would damage her and not being able to use her at all. This is a card that makes sure you doesn't deck out. There was actually one game where I wasn't playing 3, I was playing 2, that I wouldn't be able to drive check. I'm pretty sure I was gonna able to Persona Ride, but I wouldn't be able to drive check. My columns were big enough to kill my opponent, but because I top decked that Keenly Lewdly off Persona Ride, I was able to refill my deck and just have like a greater push turn to where it's a more guaranteed kill versus this is my last attempt. If this doesn't kill you, if you miracle heal, this is it. Versus the having those 3 attacks instead of 2 attacks, because obviously I only had 1 face up counterblast. But like I said, just a very crucial card. This is really as long as you have a Amadine, this is really the only cards in your deck that don't soul charge directly. Keenly Lewdly obviously doesn't soul charge at all, but BAROMAGNES Persona Rides are obviously like a technical soul charge. I knew that was counted back in the day as a soul charge card because it was a technical soul charge when you would Persona Ride. But it's not really necessary anymore. You would more often than not, like, I'd probably say like 70 or like 80% of the time you're going to have 15 soul on turn 3 as long as you prioritize getting this card and keeping your soul charge cards. But for the rest of the deck, I am playing 3 DPGs and then 1 of the Blitz Order PG. It's just really good, man. Like, it's really good against grade 4 decks. It's really good against decks that have guard restrict. This is just like a really good like lifesaver card. And it's just basically like a brand new staple, even though it doesn't have the effects of the DPG. But again, like I said in my past profiles, if you're against a deck to whereas this card, you will not get the max value out of this card some way, somehow. Your objective is to burn this card as soon as possible so that it doesn't become a dead card later on in the game to whereas your hand becomes tiny. You're like, damn, I really wish this was a DPG because this is regular PG, this kind of like hurts me instead of help me. But onto the triggers, I am running 3 draw triggers. I know people are still on running like 7 to 8 draws. I was never on that train. I was always on the train of crits kill, so I more often than not ran more crits than I ran draws. But that's me. You could play 4 draws. I'm playing 3. This deck, you go through the deck so fast. More often than not, I soul charge them and I do not reap the rewards off the draw triggers, or I draw the draw trigger off of BAROMAGNES, so I really don't reap the rewards off of them. I'm thinking actually of replacing them with fronts, but more testing, of course. Playing for the effect crit and then for regular crit. The effect crit, I haven't really used it once to complete a soul charge. I haven't needed it, but it's better to have it than not need it than to need it and not have it, as they say. So we are still maxing out on 4 of the effect crits, and then I play 3 regular heal triggers, and then I play 1 of the effect heal trigger. This is the effect heal trigger that's for restanders. If your opponent only makes 3 attacks, you have a better matchup with. I found that the matchup is much easier on this deck versus if they're making more than 3 attacks, which is why I am playing the multi-attack heal trigger, because against 3 standards, it's just that extra thing that does help me survive versus not surviving. But I generally have like a really good matchup against 3 attack decks because I'm easily able to set up over triggers and perfect guards in my hand, multiples. And then one of the Dark States Overtrigger, I've really only hit this once offensively in testing. I guess it got me the game. I'm not like, but it's like really good Overtrigger. I wouldn't run any of the other ones. I know a while back, I knew this guy that he was playing the he got him and a bunch of his friends were playing the Cray Elemental Overtrigger. It's just not. This is just. It's just good in all stages of the game, and it doesn't require me to have rear guards on the board because you don't call anything unless you know you have to rush that matchup because you have no other choice. You don't call anything until you reach turn 3. So I really like this Overtrigger. There's really not much to say. Overtriggers are busted. They should be banned, but you know they're not. But that is my Baromagnens deck profile for set 6. Obviously, this deck is going to change with set 7 since we do have more direct support cards besides Amadadine. But let me know what you think about it down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And we are trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of this year, start of next year. But we're getting there. We're getting there, slowly but surely. But yeah, don't forget to help out, share the video, tell your friends. You know, I really want to, you know, get this going, get this to like a higher plane, as we should say. But later, guys.